for those of us who are here, I would like to just tell you how excited we are. The team is ready for us to have an hour and 45 minutes of educational learning activity. So I'm excited to see what we have in store for us, and I know they're very excited to share that with us. So without further ado, University Design Institute, let's hear what you have.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Dale Johnson. I'll be facilitating the hackathon today. We are going to have you doing quite a bit of work throughout the day. So put on your thinking caps, get excited about getting out in the winter weather and doing some adventuring with us. I am the Director of Digital Innovation at the University Design Institute, and I am joined by three colleagues. I'll ask them to introduce themselves now. Minu, do you have the mic on?
Yes, I do. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm Minu, Managing Director and Vice Chair of the University Design Institute.
And Tamara?
Hi everyone, my name is Tamara Christensen. Nice to see you. I am an expert in residence with the University Design Institute.
And Carrie.
Hi everyone, thank you again for joining us. My name is Cary Lopez. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives at the University Design Institute.
So we want to start out by describing the University Design Institute and giving you some perspective on who we are and what we do, and then we'll jump into the work of the day.
Thanks, Dale. We are delighted to be leading this event and so glad that you all took the time out to join us today. At the University Design Institute, we are really all about rethinking and reimagining what higher education should be and could be, because our guiding vision is that universities become powerful engines of social transformation and economic success. So what are all the things that need to change about higher education for us to realize that vision? So we at the Design Institute, the Institute itself, was designed for us to be a catalyst in that transformation. So we offer co-design efforts, we offer design services, design products and resources to support our partners, universities, university systems, to realize their own visions for that transformation. So as we think about transformation in higher education, I think we can all agree that teaching and learning is one of those things that requires transformation. We've all known this for a while. And COVID, I think, allowed us to sort of brought this up and forced us to face the idea that what we have been doing all along has not really worked and requires significant change. And COVID allowed us to see that what we were doing all along is not even possible. Or in over 150 countries, universities had to shut down because they could not teach and help their students learn. So we are in a moment where we really have the opportunity to reimagine and rethink what teaching and learning could be. And yes, students are at the heart of that whole teaching and learning experience, but faculty play a really critically important role. And so our opportunity this morning is to give ourselves permission to think really creatively about what the faculty of the future could be. What is it that this person can do, can be, can in collaboration with others bring to the table in a way that serves this fundamental transformation of teaching and learning? So we want your insights, your personal experiences, your expertise, your work training. We want your ideas, we want your imagination. And so let's just strap ourselves in to fling ourselves off all of the snow peaks that we have here in our heads and just go on this really wild adventure with each other over the next hour and a half and come up with some ideas that we can all leave feeling really excited and energized about. So thank you again for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to Dale and the team.
Thank you, Minu. I wanted to start off with a little poll to get an idea of who's attending. So if you can see this poll now, let me launch it here. Please go ahead and enter the closest category. I know some of you are in multiple categories, but we wanted to get a rough idea of who's in the room. And this will help us, as part of the conversation today, organize the dialogue and hopefully meet your needs. Part of the interesting thing about the hackathon is it's really about your personal needs. I'm excited to see so many faculty already as part of this as I see the poll results coming in. I'll give you another couple of minutes here, maybe 30 seconds to finish out. Let's see. Oh, I've got most of the results. So let me go ahead and wrap this just to share with everybody. So there you go. Faculty and staff, the two highest categories. And I fall into the staff category as my current role, supporting faculty. I've spent the last 8 years at Arizona State directly supporting faculty in a number of different disciplines. So I'm happy to see we've got faculty members here participating. So let's see what else we can share as part of this process. What we did was we put together a form. So we are going to post the link here into the chat. And if you could fill this out while I'm talking over the next 5 minutes or so, just give us some idea of what you want to get out of this process. So Carrie, if you could post that to the chat. Here we go. Feel free to jump in there, open that up, and let us know what you're interested in, what you want to achieve today, and who you are. So the basic agenda is in 2 different tranches. We've got 2 breakouts, each a half an hour long. The first one, we want to challenge everybody to think about a new game and new rules. Some of you may know that every Olympics, they get to add new games. So as part of that inspiration, we want to think about what is the new game that faculty are engaged in and what are the rules. As we know, the last year has changed all the rules. So how do we prepare for that in the second session in new skills and new training? What is it that we can do to support faculty and to help build the capacity needed to successfully survive and win in that new environment? So thinking about the new game and new rules, I wanted to set it up by talking a little bit about the history that we've all faced. Many of us have lived through this over the last 40 years of what is it that's been happening in this transformation from a completely in-person educational experience to a hybrid experience to a completely online experience. You know, going back 40 years, we had the lecture, and we still have many, many faculty that are doing lectures, but then we added audiovisual systems so people could use slides and overhead projectors. Then we added PowerPoint about 25 years ago. Faculty members started getting more sophisticated. Professors started bringing in more audiovisuals. Then we added the LMS about 20 years ago, and then student response systems began to appear in the classroom. We added email and ebooks. Next thing you know, we've got a lot of load on the faculty because we're asking them to record videos and do other extracurricular activities, develop courseware or implement courseware as part of their class. Now we've just had a huge wave of discussion boards introduced as part of the COVID crisis. People are managing that. They have to worry about exam systems online. Faculty members now have to deal with social media. You may be working in Slack, you may be working in Facebook Messenger, or you may be working in other systems in your LMS. We've had adaptive systems introducing complexity. And finally, in the past year, we've all been introduced to Zoom and become expert in how to manage this environment, or at least knowledgeable. So that systematic overload has created a lot of what I think is the frustration that we face today in our faculty work and the opportunity that we want to talk about today. So how do we build a faculty that's strong enough to not only use those tools, but transform the process? And I want to pull in a framework. You may have heard of this before. It's referred to as SAMR. This is something that Ruben Puentedura developed about 7 years ago to help us organize our thoughts around the use of technology and the transformation of teaching and learning processes. We start with substitution and augmentation. What I just showed you was an example of how professors have been crushed by the introduction of those kinds of tools. What we really want to focus on today is modification and redefinition. What are the things that we could transform completely? And what, for example, could a faculty member stop doing? That's always a critical question, not just additive. We can always add more technology, more pedagogy, more tools, more processes. What can we remove in this teaching and learning process that might have a tremendous effect and be beneficial to that process? So think about ways that you could modify or redefine what you do as you're working through your breakout rooms. And the first question for us as a group for the breakout room is, what would you do to transform teaching and learning processes by 2026? We've got Beijing coming up next year for the Winter Olympics, and then we're off to Milan and Cortina in Italy. What we want to think about here is this 5-year time horizon. We want to think about the effects of technology, pedagogy, assessment. How do you do assessments? How do you maintain that the academic integrity? What objectives do you have in a class or for a particular subject that you're teaching? What about the identity of the faculty members in that process? What is the role of the professor? The values that we bring to that, are our values changing as part of this process? Are we inventing a new set of values to manage this new expectation in the digital world? The roles of the student and relationships between students and teachers. How are all of these things changing? And what can you do to transform those types of factors? It's not just about the technology. We know that technology is a driver, but it is not the solution. As my slide series indicates, it can actually be the problem. And managing around the technology and using it effectively, getting the proper tool for the proper job, may be a great challenge for all of us over the next 5 years. So that's where we are right now with the setup. We want to give you that context to prime the pump for your thinking. I'm going to hand it over now to Tamara. She'll talk a little bit about the process that we want to engage in with you.
All right, thank you, Dale, for that fantastic setup, and Minu as well. So I am delighted to set the stage for the interactive portion of our hackathon today. And just to set a few expectations about how we'll interact with each other today, I will invite you all to agree to being present to the gift of our time together today. So to the extent that you can, we're going to start moving kind of quickly. So we'll want to make sure that you're focused, aware, and keeping email and other distractions to the side so much as you can. To also act as if anything is possible. This is a hackathon and we're going to use imagination and ideation. Great opportunity today to really push the envelope, think outside the box. I was going to try and say think outside the slope, but that's probably not a very good metaphor. So again, act as if anything is possible as we go through this exploration. I'll invite you to honor the brisk pace. We'll start moving quickly together as we move through a series of different activities and a few cycles. To please listen generously and share thoughtfully. We'll give you an opportunity in your breakout rooms to be able to interact with each other, so you'll have a chance to get to know each other and have some interactions there. And then also invite you to please use the chat for questions. We do have Jody, who's generously agreed to monitor the chat, so she'll do her best to answer any questions. And if we can't answer them right away, we promise to find an answer and to keep our eyes on the chat. So please put the questions there. So we're going to, as we mentioned, put you all into breakout rooms to get started. So you'll have about 30 minutes for this first round, and that 30 minutes will include 3 activities. And don't worry, we'll set you up here for what they are. The first one, of course, is we want you to get to know your Olympic teammates. So when you get into your breakout room, we'll invite you to get to know each other, find out who's there, where they're from, and we'll have a few questions for you to share. And then we're going to invite you to share your ideas for this question of transforming teaching and learning processes by 2026. And again, I'll give you a little more detail on that in just a moment. And then as a group, you'll share all of your different ideas, and then we'll invite you to identify 3 to 5 common themes or insights that come up. So that's high level what you'll do with your group. And now I'll dive in a little bit more deeply on what we've got planned for you. So first of all, please in your groups get to know each other, share your name and your background, and we'd love for you to also share with each other what's exciting for you about this activity. You chose the hackathon today, so what makes this something that you're excited about? And then possibly you might have a little bit of fear involved as well. Is there anything that scares you about this activity, whether it's the topic itself or perhaps the way that we're interacting today? So allow yourself an opportunity to be vulnerable and courageous and share what might scare you about this activity. And really we want to set this up so that we don't make assumptions about why we're all here and that we have the same interests or objectives in being here today. So nice to understand where we're all coming together, where we're all coming from as we come together today. So I'm going to go ahead and get those copied into the, or see if Carrie can copy those into the chat. So you have those handy. And perfect, thank you, Carrie. So, and the other thing I'll point out today from a process perspective is we're going to use 2 modes of thinking today. We'll use divergent thinking and convergent thinking as kind of the cycle that we go through in each round. So I like to think of these as faucet and funnel thinking because it's kind of easy to remember. But in the first step, we'll use divergent thinking. We're turning on the faucet of our minds and our imaginations. We're turning off judgment. We're going for quantity. We're looking for lots and lots of possible ideas. We'll use yes and to build on each other's ideas, and think bold. Again, act as if and be bold with whatever those ideas are. So diverge, creating lots of ideas, turning the faucet on. The next step, and again, we'll step you through this as we get you into the breakout groups, is the convergent thinking. You'll have lots of ideas in your breakout group, and you'll get to funnel. You'll get to start choosing and identifying what are some themes, what are some common insights that have come up. We invite you to use strategic judgment. In this case, it's go for quality, something that's really representative of everyone in the group. And also to praise first. So sometimes when we get into convergent mode and we're making decisions, some of us, and I point to myself here when I say this, can put on our critical hat and say, well, this isn't really possible, or this wouldn't quite work. So the invitation is to praise first and start with what you like about something before you get to what you might not like about something. And again, we'll encourage you to continue to be bold. So after you've introduced yourselves, we'll signal in the breakout rooms with the broadcast to start with your transformative ideas. And again, this is quite simply everyone in your group sharing your ideas about what you would do to transform teaching and learning processes by 2026. And this is divergence, and this is using the blue sticky notes. I'll explain where we're going with this in just a moment. And then, of course, as a group, you'll have lots of ideas, and you'll narrow that down to 3 to 5 that you'll share back with everybody else. Tamara, what are these sticky notes you're referring to? You might be wondering. Well, we've created a shared workspace in a Google Slides document that we'd like to invite you to now. Carrie is going to post that link in the chat, and so we'll invite you to go find this, this document, this shared Google Slides deck. And when you get to the deck, you'll find, starting at about slide 31, you'll notice up on the top right, it says Breakout Group 1. So once you get into your breakout group, you'll want to find your group's page. And then you'll see we've already pre-populated it with a bunch of sticky notes for you. And all you'll do after you've done your introductions and we prompt you to begin the divergence is to populate these sticky notes with all of your ideas for transforming teaching and learning processes by 2026. So I'm going to pause for a moment to make sure you all have a chance to get to that link and see if we can troubleshoot anything before we go off. And again, as a simple reminder, there's 3 steps in your groups. First, get to know each other, and we've posted the questions in the chat. And then we'll prompt you to move on and go to your slides so that you can add your sticky notes. And then we'll invite you to identify the top 3 to 5 ideas that you'll post on yellow sticky notes, which we'll add to your slide at the appropriate time. And then we'll come back and share and see what came up across all of the different groups. So let's see here. I think, unless anyone has a question, or if you're having any trouble reaching the Google slide deck, you're welcome to notify us in the chat. What I'll also add is when you get into the breakout group, Each person in your group can work in your on the computer on your version of the slide deck. It's a shared file. You're also welcome to have one person share screen if you like the idea of one person kind of having that up so that you can all look at it and view it in the same way. If you have any questions, you can always hit the question mark that says ask for help, and one of us will be happy to pop in and provide you a little tech support, which would make my teenage son roll his eyes if he knew I was offering tech support to anybody, but we will offer some tech support to you if you need it. I think with that, Carrie, we're ready to go into the breakout groups unless anyone has a question you want to post before we go. So again, get to know each other, share ideas, and then we'll prompt you with some little notices to move on to pick your ideas to come back and share with the rest of us.
That was really bizarre. Even though the settings in the Google, I mean, the settings
So
clearly.
the settings were for view. I thought I updated that yesterday, but maybe I updated our back of house instead of this one on accident when I was working with two identical documents. Anyway, it was view only. We could type in it because we were all invited to it. So I switched it in that moment. So you're right, Carrie. When you got there, it probably was wrong, and then I switched it when my group explained it. So they should be all good. My group was happily just, group 2, they were just chatting, and still only 2 of them had introduced themselves. So probably good that they get a little extra time.
Isn't that always the way? I feel like we always underestimate the time.
Well, I think the thing is, my natural tendency when designing agendas is to time block the same amount. Like today we have session 1 is one amount of time and session 2 is the other amount of time. And I think the thing to remember, it's kind of like the on-ramping we talked about, is that the first round of anything will always be the longest round, because by the time they get into consecutive rounds, they'll have that kind of rhythm down a little bit better. So I think we can, I'm just checking time here, give them, a few extra minutes for the ideation, because this is the part that we really want them to spend some time on.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny, isn't it? The introduction, we were talking about this before, this idea that they have to create community in a relatively short period of time in this medium. It's tough process. So I always feel the same way. Give them a little more time, get to know each other.
Well, and it's funny because there's an MO that you have to learn in this session with these people in this setting. And so you gain some efficiency as you go. So to your point, that'd be interesting. Wonder if we can hypothesize or calculate what the efficiency gain is, right? Like for the first session, it's 30 minutes, but then every session thereafter, you can cut off 10%.
Well, that's what I was telling you. There's a PhD in there somewhere. Community building in this mode is definitely a challenge. And
not for me.
You already have yours.
I'll never do that again.
No, I think it's a fascinating topic, because we can't take it for granted that just because, and I think this has happened a lot this past year, you drop people into a breakout room, but they don't know what to do. So you have to be much more explicit.
Yeah.
This process of forming, storming, norming, and performing has to occur in that social dynamic.
Yeah. It'd be really interesting to get together with the Mary Lou Fulton folks too, who run so many design charrettes, and talk with them through their experience as well in breaking groups apart and always circulating the groups versus keeping the groups the same, and what is gained by both methods.
Go ahead, Jody. You're on mute.
Those are my people.
Your people, yay!
Yeah, Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College, Office of Scholarship and Innovation. So yeah, this is something we need to look into.
Because I participated in one of the design charrettes you all ran. I feel like it was at the very beginning of the pandemic, like March-ish.
Yeah, there was one then, and then one a little bit later too. So
yeah, and it was interesting because in that one, the groups were constantly reassigned, and so you started with one group, you were in another group, and then you ended in yet a third group, and then in another experience, it was the same group throughout. And I think it would be really interesting to talk through what you gain both ways. Like both of them have pros and and cons, right?
The
Pluses and-
research nerd in me wants to run a study, and there's a control group, and there's another group, and you put people through. I designed a similar study way back in the day when I was in grad school, but it was all about ideation and brainstorming. It wasn't virtual, but taking people through a similar process and then kind of looking at what were the differences that emerged based upon something they might not know was kind of the variable across those different. I mean, I'm not suggesting we do that, but if anyone wanted to do that, I'd be happy to play in the part of designing and delivering and implementing the research plan, and then I would be happy to read whatever you write about it.
We faced the same design dilemma when I was working in the analog world with the biology faculty. They had groups of 75 and they had to break them down into smaller groups of 6. And initially they thought we'll change them up every week, but the cognitive load was too high. So students were much more comfortable if they left them alone for 8 weeks and then just changed them once.
Yeah.
So after the second exam, they assessed where all the students were in their development and then reallocated them back out. And even that was disruptive. That caused a little bit of angst. The students had already made friends and were comfortable with their team. But part of this challenge obviously is figuring out how to work with teams. And in this modality, it would be fascinating to see what that friction is in that process.
Just as a quick point, sorry, I'm just kind of watching the ideas come in, and they're coming in pretty slowly. We have 4 in one group and 1, 2, 3 in the other group. And so I'm wondering if it would be helpful for us to to do a broadcast or to pop in that says 5 more minutes for idea generation. Remember, diverge, type all the ideas or something, because my concern is that maybe they're talking it through as they go, and we'd given them so much instruction, we didn't dive more specifically into this piece. And so I'm wondering if they're discussing every idea that comes up.
Yeah, like they're pre-evaluating them. I think that's a good idea.
So do you think it's helpful to do that? This is a whole other study. Is it better to like broadcast or pop in and offer and poke the seal, break the seal and interrupt their group?
I think the personal touch would be nice. Since you've set this up, maybe you just pop in because there's only 2 of them. So
Okay.
You go in and say, hey, everybody, remember, you're not trying to evaluate, you're just trying to ideate.
All right, Carrie, do you want to divide and conquer? I'll go to 1, you go to the other. I'll go to 2 again. And I'm just going to say, hey, just a reminder, we're in diverging mode. You have 5 more minutes. Make sure you get all the ideas out, and then you'll have a chance to discuss them.
Okay. And then I wanted to welcome Stephanie. We are currently doing breakout groups around ideating. It might make sense for you to hang out with us in this central. Oh, did we just? Oh, there
No,
she
I
is.
just put my camera on. Sorry. I'm covering the event, so I'm just kind of popping in and out. So I'll be a fly on the wall.
Well, welcome.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been interesting so far. So I really appreciate. I was here a little earlier as well, so I'll be just popping in and out. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to hop into group 3 and poke. I don't know what Tamara called it. Poke the seal. Yeah, I'll be right back.
Never heard that metaphor before, but. So Jody, are you a faculty member or a staff member?
I am an admin professional, so kind of both. Yeah, and I manage the ignited labs that we have at
Right, yeah.
3 different.
I did the opening ceremony, so I learned all of those.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Are you in the library or are you in the Mary Lou Fulton building?
Mary Lou Fulton. Yep. In
Okay.
Farmer, down in 144.
Okay.
Yep.
No, I was thinking about, because they just redid the whole library and I know they were putting maker spaces and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I was wondering whether there was something there as well.
Yeah, something similar, just not ours. Yeah.
What's the other? Is it a UTO service?
Gosh, no, I don't think it is. I don't know. That's a great question. Maybe. I don't know.
Because UTO has the collaboratory,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they've got that in the old computer science building, that CSC. And then they had some other, they have lots of brands floating around. They had some other things going on. And then when you talked about your services, I thought, oh, this sounds very similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're primarily in the education community working with the students there.
Yeah.
And is there much of a cross fertilization with a larger campus community, or is it mostly just your?
We're working on it. And we've actually, when we were in person with our open locations, we had a number of students from a variety of different colleges coming in. So we had a lot of WP Cary students coming in and podcasting and using our services there, engineering, computer science students. So
Yeah, that's great.
yeah.
Yeah, we have not had a Center for Teaching and Learning for over a decade.
Sorry, I know I feel rude interrupting this, but I just want to check in with Carrie and see how it went when she went into that group. I just want to make sure our people are working.
Yeah, they're deeply engaged with each other. I felt like I was interrupting to remind them that we're not evaluating at this moment. We're moving
And
forward.
I think at the end of the day, they're happy and they're having good conversations, and they seem like they're more interested in putting an idea and talking around it. So I think I'm going to keep a little more time on the clock here for them to do that, because I sense that's what they want to do right now. And I think we can shave a little bit off the debrief in the next round. So I just, sorry to interrupt, Dale and Jody, I just needed to confirm kind of we were on the same page there.
No, I think it's good. Let them roll. And that's part of that momentum. Once they get to know each other and figure out what their interests are, they start to build.
Yeah.
In fact, the converge part of this may not be that productive, depending on how many of these. I've got them shared on screen now, so we start to see what they're talking about, like replacing lecture with experiential, teaching with a clear awareness of learning styles. Yeah, we'll see how many ideas they get, whether there's enough there to really converge.
And I think that, Dale, what I'm thinking here is on the next session, on the next round, am I in the right spot? Yeah. Okay, yeah, perfect. So yeah, I'm just recalculating time.
Yeah, we have till 12:45, right?
12:30.
12:30. Okay, so we've got an hour left.
I think what we'll do, I'm just kind of reconfiguring time, is let them go on this to like maybe 3 or 4 more minutes, and then give them 5 minutes to converge what they want to share.
Yeah. Oh, maybe that's to frame that. Maybe it's, what do you want to share, as opposed to you have to converge.
So let's go, whoops, where's the other, maybe.
So if you're back, we invite you to unmute. This is the nice part of the process where we get to participate as a whole, and we want to listen to you. If you haven't already thought about who might want to present, we'd like to have a representative from each group give us a little bit of context. What kinds of conversations did you have? What are the thoughts about these ideas that you're sharing? I can see some themes myself as I've looked at your work as you've been developing them, but I'd love to hear your perspective at the outset.
I think, Dale, that group 2 was just wrapping up, and group 3 had finished a little bit earlier. So maybe we can invite group 3 to share first if they're willing to go through their ideas with us.
Okay. And do I need to refresh this page? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that might help.
There we go. Just in case.
I left a blank one in case group 2 had one more they wanted to add.
Do we have a courageous group 3 representative who wants to jump in and give us some background on your ideas?
This is one of those games where the first person to unmute is it.
Yeah, you're
That's
it.
you, Jay.
I'll give it a shot, and then Cynthia and Kim, please jump in and correct me where I go astray. So we talked a lot about just the struggle of the transition that we've gone through, but how that's not going to get better in the next however many years, of figuring out how to do what we do with different styles, particularly online. So, just the idea that probably everybody has had about, we still have lots of faculty at the University of Oklahoma who are very lecture based. So they want to get in the room and talk for 50 to 75 minutes, and everybody else gets to just kind of sit and listen to it. And there are those who that's what they prefer. They like that. Students like that. But there are also lots that's not the most effective way of doing it. So really continue to think about how do we help students and help faculty, because we also recognize that a lot of faculty who think that's how they're supposed to teach aren't good at it. And so part of why that's not effective is because you have people who are lecturing who are not good public speakers. And so, you know, that's where you get the students falling asleep in class and the Bueller memes and all of that that are still very real. We talked about the, one of the things that was revealed was how complicated it can be to teach online and hybrid classes, maybe especially hybrid classes, because you have two different kinds of students in the same class. So dealing with students who are live in the classroom with you, but then also who are remote, whether that's asynchronous or if they're trying to watch via Zoom, and just all the production and technology issues that raises. One of the real challenges, and we talked several different perspectives, is this thing of creating community and social in the digital space. Even when we're doing this, there's lots of cues that we can't pick up on. And there is something about just having other like actual people around you. So how do we recreate that in an environment that seems to be becoming more and more digital? And I don't think that's going away. Collaboration, what that looks like, and kind of thinking through the same lines there. And then finally, one of the big shifts is in alternative credentialing, and how do we simplify the path to a credential and a degree? How do we provide more legitimacy for things like badges and other micro credentials? And what happens if, and I think when, we do away with the 124-hour bachelor's degree, and what takes its place?
Those are great. Thanks, Jay. Any other of the teammates want to jump in and add anything?
Oh, Jay knocked it out of the park.
Great. Yeah, I heard the word struggle in there early, Jay, and I think that the transition has been traumatic for most of us. And part of this conversation is to try to figure out how do we ameliorate the trauma or help to create an environment where it's less traumatic to get through that struggle. So thank you for that insight. What about group two? Any additional thoughts you want to add or different commentary?
Are we adding to group, giving comments on group three's ideas?
If you'd like, and then you can elaborate on your own.
Okay, well, I don't want to do all the talking truly, my group, but was it Jay who spoke for a group? Yeah, okay. So Jay, when you started out, and I think it's your first sticky note teaching and learning styles, and you just point blank said, and some faculty aren't very good at lecturing. So we talked a lot about, and we had a great group of an instructional designer and then two faculty members. And we talked a lot about what is the faculty role? And that's our first sticky note. And then the third sticky note, designers design and teachers teach and mentor. And so the idea was finding out what faculty strengths are, what they do well, and making sure they're evaluated and rewarded for that. And faculty who don't lecture well and who shouldn't be putting together their own online courses because they just don't have the technology bandwidth for that. What is their role? In other words, if we want really good public speakers delivering lectures, or maybe we don't even want lectures and we want animation and inline video quizzing and all sorts of engaging, right, online learning content for students. Those are the designers designing. And then what is the faculty role? The faculty role might be to provide content, absolutely, right? The what we used to call the textbook content. But maybe the faculty role is to do all the mentoring of the students, the one-on-one, the 5-on-1, the 12-on-1, that students remember when they exit university. Anybody want to pick up on that in my group? or maybe move,
Sure, Laura,
move us
this
on?
is Kelly. I'll pick up there. So I think another way of kind of continuing that is looking at how we're assessing students, different forms of evaluation within the classroom, but then a grading system overall. Like you guys in group 3 talked about the badges, micro credentials, not having that set number of credit hours for the bachelor's degree, but looking at different ways of grading, not grading, assigning, whatever your outcome might be, if it's a traditional degree or even a new path that isn't on the books, but something that is created as students go.
Yeah, and Laura, I would pick up on the word you use, which is role. What is the role of the teacher in the learning process, and how would we change that over time? I mean, one of the realities we face is, as my slide series indicated, is we've asked teachers to be superheroes and do everything in the past, do their own presentations and their own videos and their own course management and everything. And maybe there are specializations emerging now, and the ideas of redefining a role for the teacher. And then the corollary in my mind for that is the identity of the instructor. What is it that they feel they're doing to add value to the learning process?
Totally. I've told my own institution that we're going into our 4th term remotely, and that instructors have been asked to do a triplicate role. So 3 roles, and that is provide the content, create the online course, and be the instructor of record. So I absolutely see specializations emerging. And it makes me very optimistic. I wish that there was more national conversation occurring I realize this is a national, international conference, but just a little more coordination. So I do worry, about, the future of faculty. I know that's what this hackathon is called, but I'm sure there's many faculty worried about their economic futures and what their roles might be. And, but I'm very hopeful. So thank you.
And I'll go back to something Jay said, which is the transition is going to be emotional. It's going to be physical transition. It's going to be financial. All of those things are in play right now. And my sense working with faculty is that the uncertainty is paralyzing a lot of us, in that we don't know what the future role looks like yet. So we have to move slowly and carefully and methodically. And part of the reason this hackathon is occurring is because we want to look over the horizon. We want to try and figure out, as you were saying, the content, course, and instructional components are clearly defined so that people can decide what's the role and what do we need to ask for help on.
If I might build on that, Dale, and what all of you have said, I often have my foot in a more higher education context, as well as a lot within the corporate world. And one thing that I often see in corporate that's going through digital transformation is the rise of the cross-functional team. And it's so very obvious in a corporate context, you would never send a designer to do the job of a marketer or an engineer or someone who's responsible for business or commerce. And so I think a lot of what I hear you saying is happening in a kind of corporate environment where they're recognizing that to deliver on something amazing, an amazing experience, for, let's say, a customer, as how they're thinking about it, it's not unlike being able to deliver a learning experience that requires cross-functional expertise kind of working in chorus. So I see that sometimes we're following trends that happen in corporate, and that cross-functional team is happening. So I'm optimistic something like that could emerge within higher ed as well.
And by the way, we're going to share all these ideas with all of you. So you'll have group 2 and group 3 information for future reference as you go back to your day jobs and you think about how can you use this information. The other thought I had was I want to go back to something Jay said about community. In my experience, community was an externality in the educational process for a lot of the faculty, because students had to figure out if they're going to go to Starbucks and form a study group and get together, or if they're going to join fraternity or sorority or a club, or if they're going to be in sports. So that community around the learning process is now much more critical when we go online, and they can't go and hang out at the Starbucks because it's not proximal, and they can't just stop by and see a friend because of COVID or whatever other reason. And that's, I think that's a new role too, is how is a faculty member a community builder now, not just a pure educator in the old school model.
Well, and Dale, if I can, I think some of the challenge of that is because Starbucks isn't a great place to go in a lot of places right now. So even, trying to figure out, assigning groups like we're doing here and then saying, you guys figure out how to get together. I think some of the role of the faculty, and this goes directly, I think, to what Laura's saying about having to be an expert in so many different things, is finding those collaborative technologies that students can use to get together, so that it's not just creating a Facebook group, because lots of students don't want to do that, don't want to share at that level, or whatever that technology looks like, so that students can get together to work on projects, or just to get together and, let's be honest, complain about the professor, or talk about the workload, or talk about the textbook, or whatever it is that they're going to do. But finding ways providing opportunities for the faculty to learn about the technology that they can help students learn about is like one more pretty significant lift in all of the things we've already added.
And Marilyn, you raised your hand, just jump right in here. If you can unmute.
Marilyn, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking about, some of the introductory courses, and you have how many hundreds or thousands of professors all teaching intro to physics. Is intro to physics really that different? That 1,000 different efforts need to be made of all the content. And I know the textbook companies are in here, and I get really wary of the educational industrial complex coming in. But I know Canada, I remember talking to someone that was involved in OER from Canada. And imagine if some of the best designers, best lecturers could design kind of a MOOC, and it was funded by the government. This is where the government could, contribute. And then you have this really amazing MOOC with great video, great animations, great content, but then you don't have that personal piece and the inspiration that a faculty member could give. So if I'm a physics professor and I say, well, I can start from scratch and write all my own lectures and do that, or can I spend my time mentoring students on research projects, helping students at very different levels push to their, push their levels, and also modifying the assignments that fit my particular group of students. Am I teaching non-majors? Am I teaching majors? So it's not like it's 100% here, go watch this MOOC or something and do it and get your grade from me, but really kind of like it's an enhancement. Some of that core work is done, so the professor can put their time into building great assignments, evaluating, giving really great feedback. Could that be something that could transform some of the higher ed?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because it actually came up in our prep work for this hackathon. We were talking about that too. Like, what is the opportunity in this new environment for faculty members to bring in research, to bring in their community service, to bring in their own identity? And this idea that we have to have some kind of standardization, I think, is anathema to us in higher education. We could have commonality, but we could also have personality. So thank you for raising that. I want to do a quick process check. We have about a half an hour left, and we had initially intended to go out into breakouts again to do a little more thinking about this next phase here, which is that sense of new skills and new training. Our conversation is already drifting in that direction. So why don't you guys give us some feedback? Do you want to go back in maybe for 15 minutes, do some more thought and creative imagining around these two themes?
My group was delightful, Dale. I'm wondering if we could mix the groups for more cross-pollination.
We could do group of the whole. You could do it either here or we could
Yeah.
go back into the breakouts.
I'm just saying if we go into breakouts, could we mix the members?
We've also discussed this at length. There's going to be a transactional cost when we do that because you're going to get to know your other.
Oh yeah, you're
But
right.
okay, you could do
You're
that
right.
in an abbreviated fashion. You could say we're going to take 3 minutes to introduce ourselves to each other, and then we're going to work for another 15 minutes.
Yeah, you're right. And also Marilyn, Marilyn and Kelly and we have a lot to unpack with this. Marilyn, right from the get-go, asserted this idea that why are we offering 1,000 different sections of introductory this and introductory that? That doesn't make any sense. And really, that faculty member support role of customizing. I think that's what I'm hearing you say.
Mhm.
So we probably have plenty to unpack.
Oh, this actually gives me an opportunity to promote my session tomorrow. Tomorrow at 11:45, I'm going to be talking about that issue, Marilyn. I've got a presentation on the next generation of Moocs and my thoughts on that. So please come back tomorrow to hear me talk about where I think we can go with that idea. So why don't we go back into breakouts? You guys can unpack some more of this. There is another set of slides that you can use to capture your ideas. Feel free to continue with this. The eventual goal here was to have some kind of prioritization. Doesn't have to be a fully resolved breakout, but if you think that a new form of Mooc is the most impactful opportunity, we'd love to know that, because what we can do is we can encourage that conversation and continue it both among ourselves and also outside of the hackathon. So why don't we do that? Why don't we go in for 20 and then we'll be back here at 12:25. And I would say stay with your group since you are having some deep conversations. Use the tools you have, or you can freestyle it if you feel like it's useful to just go right to the final version. So Carrie, can you drop them back in?
Yeah, Dale, can I just pause for a quick moment as a process suggestion? I would invite you, if you could go back a slide, Dale, to take a few minutes and allow yourselves to kind of get all of your ideas out and do a little bit of that divergence, and then kind of step back and see what you have to work with. It's kind of like putting your palette out there, all of your ingredients out there, and then see what you all can stitch together as a recipe when you see what all those ingredients are. So we'll give you some time checks with the broadcast so you don't lose track of time, but would love to invite you to do that diverging and get everything out, and then take the time to discuss so you don't lose anything that might be hiding in the back of your mind right now.
Great. So thank you very much for sharing, and we'll see you in a few.
It's interesting too, because I feel like the question technically is, what do faculty need to do to prepare for this future? And yet I think that their thinking is more about, they're still kind of in the following the thread of like, what does the future look like?
Yeah.
It's just interesting how the sequence of the activities we thought would go one way.
Yeah, this is another lesson learned, right? They're continuing on. There's momentum there that they didn't have time to resolve. This has been my experience working on these breakout rooms. We always feel like we need twice as much time. And maybe that's part of what we should give people in the future.
Twice as much time, or it almost speaks to kind of the unconference approach where, rather than us trying to determine the prompting questions that push people forward, once they have momentum, you can almost, okay, now go carry your momentum forward. Like, you found the topic that seems to be resonating with you. So, but it's always a.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. My other hackathon experiences with Ed Plus, lead me to believe that's the better method if we have the time. We were given 2 days before, so we always had time to struggle a little bit. You know, you could take a couple hours to figure out where you want to go. In this modality, I feel like we're in a pinch because we've got such a short amount of time.
It's almost like, you know, is the role of the facilitator to be a benevolent tyrant, essentially, like this, we have a mission, we are on a target, we're going to move you forward, like, and I think time is the main indicator, right? Or are you kind of the omniscient narrator where you're just kind of in the background, you know, laying out the scene kind of thing? It's interesting.
The Wizard of Oz model.
It's both time in the moment and time relatively overall, because people want to know that if they designate 105 minutes for this international experience, that they're going to walk away with something that they felt was worth that time allotment or investment. So it's the time within the session, but it's also, is this worth factoring into my schedule? And sometimes that means I know what I'm going to get out of it objectively. And that's what teaching and sessions and workshops are all about too. So I think that there is a really tough balance to make sure that you have enough structure, enough of an output that allows somebody to feel like it was worthwhile, but enough of a space to create the flexibility that will actually generate actual learning that's relevant for various groups. I mean, it's it's very hard. You want to have structure, but you don't want to be over structured so that now that it's too prescriptive and it doesn't give space to the individuals who are there to get their needs met. So it's definitely hard, but you're not going to find a lot of people these days signing up for stuff that they don't know what they're going to get out of it. And that they're also not going to walk away being excited if they're doing all the work in terms of like creating the space without them already having that value system in mind.
Yeah.
So
I think too, Tamara, part of it is interesting is doing something that's kind of public versus something where you have like a client who has a specific, it's not totally different. You just have a lot more clients. Like I think about when we commit to, at the end of this session, we're going to have X outputs. It's easier, I think, to stay, for me anyway, to stay in the tyrant mode a little bit, benevolent tyrant, because we have objectives we have to get to, and it's not up to a democratic process of whether or not that's what these sessions are about necessarily, because they're convened for a purpose. So I was thinking like maybe it's a little bit different in a session like this where it's a little more open-ended, but to your point, everyone came with kind of an expectation based upon, so anyway, I just think sometimes, I think the worst thing to do is hand over questions of process to the group in the middle of the process because they're so embedded in content, they can't pull out of the fishbowl to say what's the right process at the time. That's why it makes me nervous to go to poll the group about process in the middle of it, because I worry that they're so into the content, they just want to stay on that track and can't see this other side of it, which is very processy.
Yeah.
Well, and there's an incredible freedom in knowing you don't have to worry about the process. Somebody else is worrying about how we're going to get from A to Z. I just have to worry about keeping the car on the road, right?
I trust the urban planners.
Yeah. And the stoplights, yeah.
You know, Tamara, to your point about product too, I see that they've shared their emails with us. They've been generous. We will offer to send out all of this raw material to them so that they can process it over time. There may be a kernel of an idea there, a little seed that somebody in their group put on a sticky, and that later on they can process at great length and get value from.
Well, and they already have the link to the slide deck, so they can go back to it anytime they want. It doesn't close.
Okay, good.
Well, sometimes I think it, you know, at least unless I am mindful enough to copy that or bookmark it or keep it somewhere else, as soon as the session's over, the chat's gone, right?
Oh, agree. I'm just saying, I think it's nice as a follow-up that aside from having to package anything, Dale, I was just suggesting sharing the link is a really nice follow-up of so that they have it easy to reference or find in their email.
Well, not that they may or may not take us up on it, but it's an avenue for them to continue to collaborate together as well. Like if they made a connection with someone in this session that they seem to really resonate with and want to continue designing together, here you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
And sometimes that comes in from the initial, what do you want to get out of this? A lot of times it is meeting someone new. I remember at the last conference or session that we did that just brought a lot of individuals together from all across the university, but they were doing different things on the African continent. And when it came out, like, what did you get out of this experience? Like, I now know that I'm not alone working on this one project. And so the fact that they spent the Wednesday evening together and there were all kind of stuff happening, the biggest takeaway from this one person is now that she had somebody else to call about that topic related to this investment that she'd already made in work. So, I mean, it definitely becomes personal in terms of, did I get what I wanted out of this? Well, what did you want? You know, and
well, what did you give? I mean,
yeah.
Well, that's why I like to start with that question, because they did give us some good insights here.
Yeah, it is.
Broadcast converge.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and put those paste those little things in here.
And where were the backgrounds? I heard Oregon.
Oh, they're in the, I don't know if you have access to this, but in the results from the survey. So they're from Delaware. There's somebody from Phoenix Union High School.
Huh.
There's the group.
Oh, there we go. Mm-hmm.
So Ed Plus, University of Delaware, Oklahoma, ASU, Phoenix Union.
Oh, okay. I see.
Did you broadcast that, Carrie? I didn't see it.
I did.
Okay, sorry. I'm sure it came up. I just wasn't looking at that screen. I was making sure they had their little.
I was watching. I broadcast it when you put them in.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. So see if we can get some final thoughts here and wrap this.
It's so interesting too from a planning scenario. So 900 registrants, 6 attendees in a hackathon, a longer time duration. I think this is consistent with what we experienced, Tamara, at Innovation Week. 3,500 registrants, and in a full day, half day kind of session, we had 11?
Yeah.
And show up. So it's the heavy time commitment results in like a 1% attendance rate.
Yeah. Not too surprising, really, when you think about that. And as I've experienced this online conference experience myself, it's hard to remember to block the time to get to the activity that you want. So
yeah, that would definitely be if we could figure out how to hack meeting invites and the registration, which I know there's tools that do it like Eventbrite and things, but that is definitely a big part of it.
I saw Sam do some of that this morning. She emailed out the agenda for today, and it had links, the time and the link for each of the activities. And I thought that was good. Yeah. But I agree, it's like a reminder, 1 hour, 30 minutes, 10 minutes, your session starting.
For this. You wanted to,
but people didn't pre-sign up for this. Is that correct? It's just kind of who shows up.
They registered for the event, correct? Yeah. I think there's tech tools we can start using to hack some of this. So
I do think that's an interesting opportunity for kind of a customer experience design to think about in the mindset of people who are signing up for something like this. What are they looking for? What are they coming for? I feel like I've avoided most online conferences during this time because I don't want to be in front of Zoom any more than I have to, because I'm already just speaking for myself as I attempt to empathize with someone else. There's a lot of really great conferences, and there's very few that I've thought I'd actually put myself in front of the screen for even more. So I kind of wonder, I hear what you're saying about there are likely tech tools that can help. And I also think there's lots of solutions, but I'm still back at trying to understand, but what's the problem we're solving for? What is the thing that impacts whether or not people sign up?
So I'm going to go back to something Jay said, which was community. This is the hard part for me. I cannot have any serendipitous community connections in this modality. It's impossible for me to just bump into a colleague as I'm sitting in the Zoom room. And that's something that on the periphery of these activities, we need to solve. It's the same problem he raised in the educational process.
Well, it implies there is no serendipitous or passive way to engage. You have to intentionally, like even networking sessions in this modality, you have to put yourself in that digital space. You have to intentionally attend, right? Versus just, to your point, bumping into somebody in the hall or the restroom or the
Okay.
Starbucks line or.
And
Yeah.
these
And the
events
level
are
of
not-
Did you
engagement
signal
also,
them to come back?
Yep, I'm doing it.
Hold
Okay.
hold on just a second, please. Hold on. I'm just getting there. They're still finishing their outcomes. I just want to make sure I get them posted into, they're not done with their outcomes yet. So I just want to give them a chance to do that. So we have something to share when they come back. Sorry, after all this discussion about, are they getting what they came for? I want to make sure they finish their,
I'll hit the button at 12:25 because that's what we told them.
okay.
I think also
That'll start the countdown clock, 60 seconds.
yeah.
These events are not taking place anywhere aside from our work environments as well. So I find myself signing up for virtual conferences and then I can't attend because I'm still working.
Right. That's a good point too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm also not going to attend my personal evenings or mornings or weekends, especially if it is the work context.
Yep, exactly.
So the conference feel of like going somewhere, taking yourself out of your day to day, you can't necessarily replicate some of that.
Mhm. I also like the access to the material sometimes. And so signing up allows for that link and that feature
Yes.
versus wanting to be fully immersed and engaged real time because I might not have the time, space, or focus at that point. And so you might find a less subscription when the event is interactive, you know.
Do
and
you
maybe
go
when-
back, Tamara? Do you go back? I do that all the time. I sign up for all kinds of stuff, but personally, I just like, and then I'm like, oh, I rarely go back, but that's just me. Do you go back?
I have not been going back as much, but I do still have those links, you know, and there might be those times that I end up walking and feel like listening to something that I've picked up on at another point. So it could be 6 months later. I mean, it really is to that point. So I would imagine thinking about those individuals who were on earlier and dropped off, perhaps they weren't ready for the full engagement, you know, and this is not that type of session. So they're like, okay, let me back on out. I would love to hear about the conversation of maybe you have spectators, and that might be the part that kind of comes into these events. I have, you know, a full participant who is engaging real time, and then I have spectators. And
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Sorry, Tamara, we've got everyone back now.
Oh, great. Thank you all for going through the second session and contributing all these great ideas. We want to give you a minute or two to process these and debrief. Anyone want to make any comments from either of the teams about your suggestions here? And could you move the one of them up a little bit in the gold? Tamara, I don't know if you can slide up the universal Mooc gold.
We can see it just fine on the screen.
Oh, I'm sorry, maybe I didn't. Okay, you can see that? I thought it was.
Yeah, we could see it when you had it full screen. It was fine.
Okay, good. I was worried it was being blocked by one of the
It's good.
process things. Okay, good. Any thoughts before we wrap? All of these for me look exceptionally like exceptionally good ideas and highly likely to be part of the solution over the next 5 years. I'm glad you raised the classroom space redesign. I think that is something we've encountered at Arizona State. We have to make the new environment to support the new process of teaching and learning. Anyone who hasn't spoken yet want to?
Well, I'd like to hear more about development of centralized training toolkit with varied options for training. That sounds similar to access to resources. I know the faculty at my university really lack resources, or there's inequity across the faculty in terms of the resources they have at their disposal for online instruction. the group, I'm guessing it's group 3. Would you unpack those? Like what's in the toolkit, what resources, who's delivering these resources and toolkits?
So when we were talking about,
Go ahead.
sorry, I thought I'd give you a break because I could talk too. So what we're talking about is it's a little different just because of when we're talking about development centralized trainings and stuff is what resources are teachers getting to learn on how to they could, you know, change their training, or change their teaching style or change their classes, redesign their classes. What resources could they get, like especially when you get new tools that you adapt at your college or in your school, you know, what information are you able to find that you can get access to that? So like at ASU, I'm an ASU UTO worker and I'm an instructional designer for this team. So we help all faculty. We have one website where we have a toolkit, which is essentially like a centralized location where teachers can get information about a Pearson technology, what do we use? We use Slack here. Canvas is what we use as the big platform where they can get that information, where they can also see quick videos, because we like my team creates quick tips. We create 2 minutes or less videos on how to do something, because maybe someone doesn't want to do reading, they want to watch a video, or if they want to do a live training or meet someone, there's one place that they get access to all that information without having to jump different websites. Because we have problems with that at ASU where lots of departments share different information and it becomes a seek and find for everything. So this is kind of the idea, is making it one place for everyone to get the same information and consistent information. The access to resources is more of the device. So the device is like, you know, not every teacher has technology. They don't have a computer. They don't have internet. They don't have abilities to, like, if they need a counsel for something, they need to have that resource. That's kind of the difference with that, is who else could they reach out to, or what else do they need to make them better teachers or to help them out doing their jobs.
Yeah, I like this. I'm seeing layers of services. You've got to have access, then you've got to have support, then you've got to have a new classroom environment, then you've got to have a new content environment. So you guys have put together a nice outline in an hour and 45 minutes of future challenges that we face. So we don't want to limit that conversation, so we want to continue it on. This is the après-ski opportunity. We put together another survey. It's again, just kind of basic wrap up. If you'd like to remain part of the conversation, we've already got most of your emails from the first survey, but just say, yes, I'd like to be involved. We'll see if we can't facilitate the continuation of this. You have access to all of this information through the link that we shared. So if you want to go back and unpack one of the ideas that you saw on a sticky note that you didn't have time to work with, that's an opportunity as well. So we are very grateful for the time that you've invested. We know that your time is valuable and you've got competing interests and opportunities. So we just want to say we're grateful and we are eager to continue working with you as part of the solution set for the future of faculty.
Thank
Any
you
wrap up?
all.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Tamara, do you want to add anything?
No, that was
Thank you,
great.
guys.
It's nice to see and meet you all.
Thank you.
Yep, please check out
But-
the other events, and thanks for joining us at the Winter Games. I hope you're continuing to enjoy the festivities and have a wonderful day.
I'm just letting you guys know I'm posting in the chat real quick. Marilyn asked for an extension of what we're using at ASU. So this is a public website. So I'm just going to give you the Provost website where we do host all of our stuff. I'll also just give you, this is only for our faculty and staff to use because it all applies to ASU, but I will let, it's this public website too. You can look at our website and all the resources we have provided. We try to centralize everything in our website, but it's the Provost office is trying to link stuff out too. So there's still like some arranging we're trying to do with getting all that centralized too.
That's great, Cynthia. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.